So like 1, 2, 3, go, or 1, 2, 3, and then I go? Like, are you going to tell me to go, or do I have to wait to go? Why do I have to wait to go? Like, can't we just start the camera and then go when I'm ready? And then we just edit out the... No, I can't do that. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, go. Hello, and welcome to Action Surge, the series where we take a deep dive into your turn in 5th edition Dungeons & Dragons. Today, we are going to be looking at the ready action. In a game like D&D, we split up combat and other tense moments into an initiative order where everyone gets their own turn. Despite that, you may want to do something that doesn't quite make sense on the turn that you are given. You may have an idea of something that you want to do, but you're waiting for something in order to do it. You don't want to pass your turn now. You don't want to wait until next turn when things may have radically changed. You are going to ready an action to be taken on a specific trigger. Let's go ahead and take a look at the mechanics of how this works in the game. Before looking at the mechanics for the ready action, we should take a moment to discuss what a reaction is. A reaction is something that every player gets once per round. It can occur on your turn with your move, action, and bonus action, but it does not have to. A reaction is something that you take when a specific trigger is met. If your class gives you a class ability that happens on a reaction, or a spell functions as a reaction, they will give you a specific trigger that will allow that ability or spell to be used. That trigger must be met for that ability or spell to happen. What the ready action does is it allows you to build your own cause-effect relationship, where you define the action you want to take and the trigger that is going to cause it. Now let's look at the specific wording of the ready action. First, you decide what perceivable circumstances will trigger your reaction. Then, you choose the action you will take in response to that trigger, or choose to move up to your speed in response to it. When the trigger occurs, you can either take your reaction right after the trigger finishes, or ignore the trigger. Notably, for readied spells, when you ready a spell, you cast it as normal but hold its energy, which you release with your reaction when the trigger occurs. To be readied, a spell must have a casting time of 1 action, and holding on to the spell's magic requires concentration. Based off of this rule, when you ready a spell, you cast it beforehand. You have already spent the spell slot, whether or not you choose to use the spell when the trigger occurs. Personally, I allow players to hold on to their spell beyond the trigger if necessary, and then release it on their turn. This way, you don't give up holding on to the magic of the spell just because the situation did not occur. You can go about and find another use for that already cast spell. The book's examples for reactions include, if the cultist steps on the trapdoor, I'll pull the lever that opens it. And, if the goblin steps next to me, I move away. While the book doesn't specify this, I like to interpret the move away from the goblin version to happen concurrently as the goblin approaches. If the goblin were to become adjacent to your character and then you moved away, they would technically get an attack of opportunity and possibly nullify the reason you moved away if you did so for safety. Having these occur concurrently prevents that condition from happening. Now that we've looked at the mechanics of the ready action, when are you going to want to use this? You're going to want to use the ready action when you are certain of what you want to do, but the situation is not ready for it yet. There's going to be a temptation to use the ready action when there is uncertainty. This is something you want to be cautious about. The best uses of the ready action when you know what you want and you know exactly what is going to set it off. You are going to close the door when your companions step through. You are going to shoot at the archer when they step out from behind cover to make their shot. All of these things have very specific things that you are going to do, and they have a very specific situation of when you're going to do them. An example of an uncertain situation where you don't necessarily want to use the ready action goes back to our first action video about the attack action. I had mentioned that if your companions are trying to negotiate with the enemy, you may not want to attack them. Despite this, you also don't necessarily want to give up your attack if you don't know if the enemy is about to give up. In this case, there may be a temptation to ready an action to attack any of the bandits if they are about to attack your companions. You have hesitated, and then you are looking for something very minute. In this case, this is a very uncertain situation, and the game master may not let you trigger your attack in time because you don't know when they're about to attack. A better instance in this situation for the ready action is if any of the companions continue to attack my companions, I will then shoot that bandit. In this case, you are hesitating, but the nature of the ready action is you are hesitating. You are taking that moment to give them the opportunity to give up. And then if they don't give up, you shoot one of them. Now, if you don't want to play this game of waiting for them to attack, for you to attack, there is another way around it. There is a skill in the game called Insight. Not only can anyone make an insight roll when the game master tells them to, but you have a passive insight score. If you are waiting to see if the bandits are about to give up, and you are uncertain if they're going to do so, you can ask the dungeon master, hey, I have a passive insight of 13. I have a passive insight of 15. Does it look like the bandits are about to give up, or are they going to continue to fight? In this case, the dungeon master can give you additional information to inform the turn you want to take. Rather than readying an action for something that is uncertain, you become certain about the situation. With this, we want to make sure that a readied action is something that you are certain you want to do when a very specific trigger happens. Not about to happen, not is going to eventually happen. You are going to take an action when the trigger happens. Now that we have that clarified, as this is a very complicated subject, let's go ahead and flip over to ways to better tell the story of readying an action. When it comes to telling the story of a readied action, the story comes in two parts. We have the part where you are taking the action, deciding what you're readying, and then you also have the trigger. Your narrative is going to be split between those two moments. Now, when you go to ready your action, it's your choice whether your character informs the rest of your companions what is actually going on, or if that's something that they keep to themselves. You can take this opportunity to outline their thinking, describe why this character is coming up with this plan or not. Your description can be something just for the table. The characters in the story don't have to know what's going on in your character's head, but part of telling the story is getting this glimpse into what your character's thinking as they ready this moment. Well, that's if they're deliberately readying this action. This may be a hesitation in the game. You as a player have made the choice to ready an action, but your character may have run up to a door, seen your companions inside, fighting a giant. Your companions are running towards you, and you are readying your action to close the door when your companions are safely behind it. This may be just your character panicking, not running into the room, and only after what you strategically want to happen happens, your character continues through that moment of panic, slamming the door shut. Now, because we have this story split over two different moments, the story may change between when you start telling it and when you finish telling it. Yes, you should have a specific action you want to take on a specific trigger, but depending on what other bits of narrative your companions sprinkle into their turns, it may change how you choose to tell the second half of your story. And that's okay. Part of the ready to action is the hesitation, is waiting to see what happens. And if your story takes a few beats to develop before you get to finish it, that is okay. You have the time. Well, unless, of course, we have to get the next section. We should probably get rolling because they're waiting to do something and they're already queued up. So let's head over there. And with that, ready or not, we are at the end of our episode for the day. we've spoken about the mechanics of the ready action, when you would want to use it, and different ways to tell the story of your own character's hesitation or preparations for the things they're about to do. As we continue on into our next episode of Action Surge, I did miss something. As you've noticed, I've probably been going through all of these actions in alphabetical order, but one of them slipped through the cracks. Didn't quite notice it. It was hidden away. Well, we finally found it, and now we're going to talk about how to help you better understand hiding.